Good morning. This is the second lecture of your module, Human Structure and Function. So today we are going to discuss about the organization of our body. So today uh, your intended learning objectives are introduction to human structure and function. At the end of the session, you will be able to identify the levels of structural organization of the human body, identify body systems and their importance. You will be able to learn the anatomical terminology. Then you will be able to identify the body planes and regions, and at the end you will be able to identify the homeostasis and feedback mechanisms vital for your body function. Okay, so as I already mentioned you in the first lecture, we can say as the levels of structural organization starts from atoms. It means the chemical levels, atoms to elements, molecules, and then to cellular level in the second stage. As the first level, there is the chemical level, then coming to the cellular level, then the tissue level, organ level, system level, and finally reach to the organism level. So tell me, what are the types of cells that we can see in an organisms? There are muscle cells, fat cells, bone cells, right? Blood cells, nervous cells, epithelial cells, immune cells, and gametes. It means male gametes as the sperm, as the female gametes, the ovum, right? These cells originate from the stem cells in a human body. So these cells organized as a group in order to perform a specific structure and function. Then this group of tissues we are referring as the tissue, right? So what are the tissues that we can see in a human body? We know in our human body it is composed of four basic types of tissues, right? Each with distinct structures and functions, right? So they are the epithelial tissues, connective tissue, muscle tissue, and nervous tissue, right? So these tissues work together in order to form organs and then systems that perform various functions which are necessary for human life, right? So we are going to discuss each of these types of tissues now. Okay, so the epithelial tissues are the tissues that covers the body's surfaces, lines, and internal cavities and organs, and they also forms our glands, right? So this serves as a protective barrier, and it also controls the permeability and provides sensation and produces secretions, right? එතකොට මේ epithelial tissues අපේ ශරීරයේ මතු පිට body surfaces cover කරන function එකක් තමයි කරන්නේ. ඊට අමතරව අපේ ඇඟ ඇතුළත තියෙන cavities කුහර ඒ වගේ ඒවා ආවරණය කරනවා. ඒ වගේම අපේ organs ආවරණය කරනවා. ඒ වගේම අපේ ග්‍රන්ථි හදන්න දායක වෙනවා. තව function එකක් තමයි protective barrier එකක් විදිහට අපේ organs ආරක්ෂා කරන්න මේ epithelial tissues ක්‍රියා කරනවා. ඒ වගේම අපේ පටකයක් ගත්තට පස්සේ එතන පාරගම්‍යතාවය permeability එක control කරන්නත් මේක දායක වෙනවා. ඒ වගේම අපේ skin එක ගත්තට පස්සේ epithelial tissue එකක්. එතකොට අපිට skin එක හරහා අපිට sensation එක වෙනවා. ඊට අමතරව හැම ගත්තට පස්සේ secretions එක එක sebaceous gland වෙන්න පුළුවන්, ඊළඟට sweat glands වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේ secretions out කරනවා. එතකොට මේවා තමයි function, right? So basic as a summary as the functions, It will give a protection, absorption, secretion, and filtration like functions, right? So what are the characteristics of this epithelial tissue? These cells are closely packed. It means that they are tightly packed, right? Because of this tightly packed nature, it have a minimal extracellular material, right? Then the most important characteristics of these epithelial tissues are the vascular nature. It means there is no blood supply or sometimes lacks blood vessels, right? But although this tissue have no blood supply, they have a nerve supply. Nerve supply is there, right? That's why I already mentioned you in the function, it provides a sensation. If there are no any nervous supply, we cannot get that function, right? ස්නායුවක් නැත්තම් ස්නායුවන්ත නැත්තම් අපිට sensations හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ. but මෙතන nerve endings තියෙනවා. ඒක නිසා අපිට sensation එකක් ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වුණාට blood supply එකක් මේ epithelial tissue එකේ නැහැ. right? The third characteristic is high regenerative capacity. It means there is rapid regeneration. Think when we consider about our skin, right? It is most probably it is subjected to wear and tear. It means like we are doing various tasks or functions, right? Sometimes most of the outer layer of our skin is damaged, right? Because of this, cells in the skin is rapidly regenerating, right? In order to replace those wear and tear outer layers, it is regenerating. Okay, I think it is clear, right? So now moving to types of epithelial tissues, right? So basically we can classify these types as simple and stratified, right? So as I already mentioned you, we can categorize this as per the number of layers or shapes of the cells, right? So when we consider about the number of cell layers, we can classify these epithelial tissues into three, right? One is simple epithelium, right? It means these tissues have one single layer of cells, right? Then the second type is the stratified epithelium. In the stratified epithelium, there are multiple layers. Only the bottom layer touches the basement membrane, but going beyond that, there are multiple layers, right? So in the simple epithelium, there is only one single layer of cells. In the stratified epithelium, there are multiple layers. Then there is another one as pseudo stratified epithelium, right? Pseudo stratified epithelium. The pseudo-stratified epithelium appears as a layer, but all cells contact the basement membrane, right? So pseudo means like ව්‍යාජ, right? එතකොට මෙතනදී මේ tissue type එක අපිට පේන්නේ අර multiple layers තියෙනවා වගේ. ඒ වුණාට මේකේ තියෙන සියලුම සෛල ටික යාගේ basement membrane එකට attach වෙලා වගේ තමයි තියෙන්නේ. attach වෙලා තමයි තියෙන්නේ, right? ඒ වුණාට අපිට පේන්නේ multiple cell layers තියෙනවා වගේ, right? So when we consider about the number of cell layers available, we can classify epithelial tissues as simple, stratified, and pseudo-stratified epithelium, right? So other classification is we can classify these epithelial tissues as the according to the cell shape, right? So we can classify them as squamous, right? Squamous means cells are flat and thin. They are cuboidal, right? Cuboidal means the cells are cube shaped, right? There are columnar epithelium. Columnar epithelium means cells are tall and like columns, right? Then transitional. In the transitional epithelium, uh, this tissue changes its shape, right? It means like stretchable. Is it clear? So when we consider about simple squamous epithelium, there is only one flat layer of cells, right? Single layer of flat cells found in the lining of the alveolar sacs. It means our air sacs in our lungs, right? So this characteristic supports and facilitates the gas exchange at our lungs in an alveoli. Okay, so in simple squamous epithelium, there is a single layer of flat cells, and example is in our alveoli in our lungs, right? Then we can say simple cuboid, right? In simple cuboid, there is single layer of cube-shaped layers of cells, right? When we consider about simple columnar epithelium, right? There is a single layer of tall column-shaped cells, right? For an example, these kind of simple columnar epithelium we can found in inner lining of the stomach and intestines, right? So the functions of this simple columnar epithelium in the stomach and intestines are the absorption and secretion. Okay, so these are the simple epithelium, simple squamous, simple cuboidal, and simple columnar epitheliums, right? Then coming to pseudostratified epithelium. In the pseudostratified epithelium, as I already mentioned you, although it appears layered, all the cells are connected to the basal membrane, right? Sometimes this pseudostratified columnar layer, uh, pseudostratified columnar epithelium, it can be ciliated, right? Then coming to uh, stratified squamous epithelium. Stratified squamous epithelium means there are multiple layers, right? Multiple layers of cells found in our skin, mouth, esophagus. The functions are the providing protection against abrasions. ඒ කියන්නේ අපේ ගෙවිලා යන තැන්වල සයිලන් විතර ඩැමේජ් වෙන තැන්වල තමයි මේ stratified squamous epithelium එක තියෙන්නේ, right? So most probably the outermost layer of this stratified squamous epithelium, the cell layer is dead, most probably, right? So then there are stratified squamous epithelium. This stratified squamous epithelium we can classify it into two, right? According to the whether it is keratinized or non-keratinized. As I mentioned you earlier, in most of the uh, dry surfaces, right? It means in the skin, they are in the keratinized cells, right? But in moist surfaces, as I mentioned, in the esophagus, our mouth, right? They are the non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium, right? So I think it is clear for you. Then we mentioned about the stratified squamous epithelium, right? Then moving to the stratified uh, cuboidal epithelium. In this stratified cuboidal epithelium, right? Here, as you can see, 2 to 3 layers of cube-shaped cells. 2 to 3 layer of cube-shaped cells, right? Then we can see stratified columnar, right? Here also there are multiple layers of cells. Okay, so tall cells are here, right? Cells are tall, like column shaped. Okay, then the transitional epithelium. there are multiple layers of cells. The thing is they can change their shape of the, they can change their shape, right? It means they can stretch, it means change their height, weight, likewise, right? So as a summary, so you can see in simple squamous epithelium, there is only single flat layer, right? In the simple cuboid, single flat layer of cube-shaped cells, right? Then in the simple columnar, there is a single layer of column-like tall cells, right? Then when we consider about the stratified epitheliums, right? In the stratified epithelium, stratified squamous, right? Stratified squamous epithelium, we can classify into two, like stratified squamous keratinized and stratified squamous non-keratinized. For the examples of stratified squamous keratinized, we can say uh, our skin. Stratified squamous keratinized skin, stratified squamous keratinized epithelium, we can take the take examples as skin, right? Then stratified squamous non-keratinized, it can be seen in moist environments, so mouth, esophagus, the vagina, likewise, right? So then moving to stratified cuboidal. Stratified cuboid. As I already told you, there are 2 to 3 layers of cube-shaped cells, right? So the functions are the protection and secretions, right? So these type of tissues we can find in our sweat glands and their ducts, right? Then moving to stratified columnar. In the stratified columnar, there are tall cell layers, right? Multiple layers of tall cells, right? So the functions also the protection, right? So this stratified columnar epithelium we can find in our male urethra and other glands. Okay. Then this transitional epithelium, I already mentioned you, it can change their shape, right? It means stretchable, right? So the function of this transitional epithelium is stretching and recoiling. It can stretch when necessary and come into their original previously uh, previous shape. Okay, so the location we can say like urinary bladder and our ureters. Okay, then the pseudostratified columnar epithelium. This, as I already mentioned you, here it appears as layered and ciliated, right? So the functions are maybe secretion, movement of our mucus, right? This type of epithelium we can find in our respiratory tract, like trachea and our bronchi. Okay, this is about the epithelial tissue, right? The classification of the tissue. Okay, as a quick tip, right? So how we can memorize these epithelial tissues, right? If there is, we are saying like simple if there is only single layer, right? So these single layers mostly taken for the functions such as absorption or secretion, right? If there is the term stratified, there are multiple layers, right? So this, if there are multiple layers of epithelium tissue layers, right, it is mainly for the protection, right? So the final one, the pseudo stratified layers, it looks like layers but isn't, right? It means there, although it appears as multiple layers, all the cells are bound to the basal membrane, right? So the pseudo stratified epithelium we can see in our respiratory tract. Then when we consider about the transitional, it means stretching. It can change their shape, right? So the transitional epithelium we can found in our urinary system, right? Like urinary bladder and our ureters. Okay. So now moving to connective tissue, right? So connective tissues are the most abundant and widely distributed tissues in our human body. So as the functions, it supports, binds, protects, and connects other tissues and organs. Okay, other than that, it also stores energy, insulate, and transport substances within the body, right? So what are as we elaborate these functions, right? So the connective tissues provides us a structural support. It means, for an example, our bones, our cartilages, right? It provides structural support. Vyuhatmaka support එකක් දෙනවා, right? Then it protects. It means the protection. For an example, when we consider about the skull, right? It protects the brain, right? Then the transportation. Blood is a connective tissue, right? So blood transport oxygen, carbon dioxide, nutrients throughout our body, right? Then the insulation, our adipose tissue, in our when we are exposed to cold temperatures, it will reduce the uh, it will reduce the uh, reducing our internal body temperature, right? Then there is the function of storage, the storage of energy, right? So this fat as a connective tissue, it stores energy, right? Other than that, these connective tissues, it provides immune defense. For an example, when we take white blood cells in our connective tissue, right? It will provide us the immunity, right? As the characteristics of this connective tissue, there are cells which are scattered within the extracellular matrix that may contain fibers like collagen, elastin, and reticular fiber. Okay, so these cells with different types depending on tissue, right? So there are fibroblasts, there are adipocytes, there are macrophages, like cells, right? Then, as I already mentioned, there are fibers, right? These fibers, they provide strength and flexibility. When we take collagen, right? These collagen fibers, they are strong and thick, right? When we take elastin, it is stretchy, right? When we take reticular fibers, they are delicate and they have a branching characteristic. Okay. So other than these cells and fibers, there are ground substances, right? Like it means gel-like materials that fills between the spaces between cells and these fibers. That's what we are referring as extracellular matrix. Is it clear? So when we consider about the types of connective tissue or classification, right? And we can classify them as loose connective tissues and dense connective tissues, right? So loose connective tissues, right? They fill up spaces, supports and nourishes, right? So we can take examples such as areolar tissues, it means our under our skin, then adipose tissue, it means the fat. They are the loose connective tissues. They so when we consider about the areolar tissue, it as I already told you, it found under our skin and around organs, right? So this binds tissues together and holds our organs in place, right? So when we moving to adipose tissue, it is the fat, right? It means so this tissue stores fat and provide insulation as I already told you and the cushions. it cushions organs. It means there is a protective function from damages, right? So this adipose tissue found under the skin and around our kidneys and heart, right? Then moving to dense connective tissue, right? So they are the tendons and ligaments, right? So the functions of these dense connective tissues are giving us strength and the resistance, right? So when we consider about the tendons, tendons connect our muscles to bones, right? While ligaments, they connect our bones to bones at our joints. Okay, other than these loose connective tissues and dense connective tissues, there are specialized connective tissues, right? They have a cartilage, bone, and blood, right? They are supportive, right? So when we consider about the cartilages, they are providing us the flexible support, right? So we can found them in ears, nose, our joints, trachea, right? The cartilages. Then moving to bones. So where we can find bones? In our skeletal, it means the skull, ribs, right? So the functions of our bones, it provides a rigid support, right? Supports and protect our body structures, right? So other than that, it stores calcium, right? And these bones, they house the bone marrow, right? So they moving to fluid connective tissues. Our when we consider about fluid connective tissues, there are two types: blood and lymph, right? So when we consider about the blood, right, it is a fluid connective tissue that transports oxygen, nutrients, waste products throughout our body, right? So for an example, red blood cells, white blood cells, plasma, all these components are transported throughout our body, right? Then there are lymph, right? Another fluid connective tissue is lymph, right? So the functions of lymph, the vasa tarale, right? So the function is creates or generates an immune response. If any foreign body or any foreign organism enters to our body, right? So this lymph fluid generate an immune response, right? Other than that, there is a drainage function, right? So through our lymphatic system, this lymph, through the lymphatic system, through the lymph vessels and nodes, this lymph provides a drainage and it will gives us the protection as contributing for immune response. Is it clear? So as a summary, when we consider about uh, the connective tissue, first, when we let's take loose connective tissue, right? So best example is areolar tissue. It means under our skin, right? So the functions of our skin is like it cushions our organs, right? So other than that, it provides protection, right? Then it provides sensation likewise, right? Then coming to adipose tissue. So it is the fat tissue, right? You can see in the image, there are fat droplets and in the edge of the cells, there are cells nucleus, right? So this fat tissue, it stores energy and it provides us a insulation effect in order to protect our body temperature in our cold environments, right? Then there is, we can take uh, examples that dense regular tissues and dense irregular tissues, right? So as the dense regular tissues, we can take tendons, ligaments, like things, right? So these dense regular tissues, they are strong, and when we consider about the dense irregular tissues, we can take dermis of our skin, right? So this dermis of our skin, it provides us the strength in many directions, right? Then we can take the cartilages. So uh, then moving to cartilage, right? So as in this image, you can see cartilages we can see at the end of a bone, or we can say in our nose, joints, like, right? So these cartilages smooth our movements, right? Then uh, there are elastic cartilages at our ears, right? So these elastic cartilages, they provides us the flexible support, right? So then when we consider about the bones, right? So there are compact bones and spongy bones, right? So these bones composed of our skeletal system, right? So it provides the protection and the structure, right? Then when we consider about the loose connective tissues, blood and lymph, right? So blood vessels, it transport and provides the immune function. When we consider about the lymph, it composed of our lymphatic system, right? So as the function, we can take the immune surveillance. Okay. So as the key features of our connective tissue, right? So these connective tissue, it is vascular nature, right? So except our cartilage and tendons, they are vascular, right? So when we consider about these images, you can see among the cells, there is more space. It means widely spaced cells are there in this connective tissue, right? So other than that, there are abundant extracellular matrix, right? So these connective tissues, other key feature is the connective tissues, they found between other tissues, right? It means these connective tissues are not exposed to outside. Okay, so these are the key features of our connective tissue, right? So then we will move to muscle tissue, right? So what is the function here? This muscle tissue, these are the specialized tissues that has a unique ability to contract and produce our movements, posture, and heat in our body. So as the functions, one is movement of our body parts and internal organs, right? Other function is helpful for us to maintain our posture and body position, right? When we consider about our joints, these muscles helps to stabilize our joints. Okay, then the muscle tissue, it generates heat during various activities, right? Especially skeletal muscles, it provides heat or generates heat, right? So what are the characteristics? So in the muscle tissue, it composed of cells called muscle fibers, right? So in the muscle tissue, it is highly vascularized. So when we consider about the types of muscle tissue, there are mainly three types: skeletal muscles, cardiac muscles, and smooth muscles, right? So first we will talk about skeletal muscles, right? So these skeletal muscles, they are attached to our bones, right? When we consider about the control, these skeletal muscles are voluntary. Okay, it means we can control, them, right? So therefore, this is responsible for body movements, right? So when we consider about the appearance, the skeletal muscles, they can appear as striated or stripped under a microscope, right? So the functions of the skeletal muscles, this moves our skeletal, right? Then posture. Not only that, it also generates body heat, right? Then moving to cardiac muscles. Where can we see the cardiac muscles? Obviously, in the walls of our heart, right? When we consider about the control, can we control our cardiac muscle? No, right? So it is involuntary, right? Then the other thing is appearance is striated and branched, right? So the function is it pumps blood through our hearts and vessels. It means pumping blood throughout the body, right? So as a summary, in the cardiac muscles, they are involuntary muscles found in the heart, responsible for pumping blood throughout the body, right? The appearance is striated. There is another key feature here. These muscle cells, right? So these cells are uh, this appears as striated, but with intercalated disc connecting cells, right? There is an intercalated disc. There are intercalated discs which connect these cardiac muscle cells, right? Then moving to smooth muscles, right? So where we can see them, right? The smooth muscles can be seen in the walls of our internal organs, right? When we consider about the control, right? Similar to the cardiac muscles, the smooth muscles are involuntary, right? Only voluntary muscle available is the skeletal muscles. So the cardiac muscles and the smooth muscles we cannot control, right? When we consider about the appearance of the smooth muscles, they are also they are non-striated, right? So when we consider about the skeletal muscle and cardiac muscles, they are striated, but the smooth muscle, it is non-striated, right? So the function, when we consider about the function of the smooth muscles, mainly, uh, I mentioned it, we can see them in walls of internal organs, like hollow organs, like our intestines, blood vessels, and bladder, right? So these smooth muscles, as the function, they moves our food, urine, and sometimes regulate the diameter of these hollow organs. Okay, as you can see, so you can see in the image, right? So first, the cardiac muscles, right? Okay, so these are these cardiac muscle functions automatically. It means we do not have our own control, because therefore we are mentioning it as involuntary control, right? So as you can see, there are striations and the cells are branched and connected via intercalated disc, right? So that these are the intercalated disc, right? So the functions of these intercalated disc is they are synchronizing the contractions. Muscle contraction is synchronized by these intercalated discs, right? So the cardiac muscles we can only found in our heart, right? So they provide rhythmic continuous contractions, right? So you can see in a one cell, there is single central nucleus per cell in the cardiac muscles, right? So the muscles cells are striated, branched. There is a single central nucleus per cell, right? There are intercalated discs, right? Then you can see the skeletal muscles, right? So in these skeletal muscles, I already mentioned you, these muscles are the only muscles that we have our own control. It means voluntary, right? We can control them consciously, right? So here in a skeletal muscle cell, there are multinucleated cells, right? So you can see there is a long cylindrical muscle fibers are here, right? Long cylindrical muscle fibers are here, right? So as a result, these skeletal muscles, they have a fast contraction rate. Because they have fast contraction rate, they are getting tired of in a shorter period of time. It means these cells tires easily, right? So where we can see these skeletal muscles in our biceps, in our quadriceps, in our diaphragm, right? We can see the skeletal muscles, right? So as the key features of the skeletal muscles, we can say they are voluntary muscles, there are multinucleated cells, long cylindrical muscle fibers are there, right? They contract fast and get tired easily, right? As examples, we can take our biceps, quadriceps, and diaphragm, right? Then finally, the smooth muscle, right? The smooth muscles is also involuntary with similar to the cardiac muscles, right? So here you can see there are no striations, right? There are no striations. The cell shape is spindle shaped, right? You can say the spindle shaped cells, right? So when we consider about the smooth muscle, shape is spindle shaped and there are no striations, right? Here also there is a single central nucleus, right? But in the skeletal muscles, there are multi-nucleated cells. You can see multiple nucleus in a one long cylindrical fiber, right? But in the skeletal smooth muscles, there is only one single central nucleus, right? They are non-striated, they're spindle-shaped cells, right? The contraction rate is slow, but in the skeletal muscles, they are contracting fast, right? So because of that, skeletal muscles get tired easily. But because of the slower contraction rate, the smooth muscle has a resistance to fatigue, right? It means it tires more slower than the skeletal muscles. Okay, so where we can find the smooth muscles? As I already mentioned you in the beginning, we can see them in the walls of our blood vessels, intestine, uterus, and bladder. Okay, so you can see the summary, right? So skeletal muscles, they are attached to bones. The appearance is long cylindrical fibers. When we consider about the nucleus, multiple nucleus are there. They are in the periphery. Okay, striations are there, voluntary, and move the whole body. When we consider about the cardiac muscles, it is in the heart. So you can see branch cells striated and connected with intercalated disc, right? Single central nucleus is there, the striations present, autoarithmetic, yes, right? Then the control is involuntary and function is contract heart to propel blood throughout our body, right? Then when we consider about the smooth muscles, the location is walls or hollow organs, right? Blood vessels and glands, right? So you can see the shape, spindle shaped cells are there, right? When we consider about the nucleus, one single central nucleus is there, right? So here cells to cells, cell attachments are there, right? There are no striations, but cells are autorhythmic, right? Control is involuntary and the function is compress organs, ducts, and tubes, and so on. Right? I think you have a clear idea about the muscle tissue, right? Therefore, when we consider about the muscle tissue, it is essential for movements, pumping blood, and internal organ functions, right? We can classify them mainly three: skeletal, cardiac, and smooth, right? So now we are moving to final tissue type, nervous tissue, right? As an overview, right, the nervous tissue is a specialized tissue that forms our nervous system, right? Our nervous system, which is responsible for controlling and coordinating our body activities, right? By in the means of transmitting electrical signals. Therefore, we can say nervous tissue is specialized for communication and control, right? So this nervous tissue, it detects stimuli, right? From maybe from internal or external stimuli, right? External changes in the environment or internal changes, it detects stimuli and process that information. And then it sends signals through our body to coordinate functions, right? So as the main functions of the nervous tissue, we can say it receives stimuli. It means like sensory input, right? Then they, after receiving a sensory input, it processes information. It means the integration part, right? Then as the third function, it sends responses, right? Maybe like mostly motor outputs are the responses, right? For an example, we can take with the example of touching a hot object, right? When we touch a hot object, through the skin, through the nervous tissue, it sends a stimuli to our brain, right? So then our brain identified it as a danger and send a signal again to take away our hand. This happens within a shorter period of time. That's the motor output. We are taking our hand, right? Then other function is regulate our bodily functions, right? It means like heartbeat, our breathing, our reflex actions, these things, right? So where is the location of our nervous tissue? When we consider about our nervous tissue, we can classify it into two, right? One is central nervous system and other one is peripheral nervous system. When we consider about the central nervous system, it includes our brain and spinal cord. Then the peripheral nervous tissue, peripheral nervous system, right? In the peripheral nervous system, it composed of nerves extending to our limbs and organs. Okay, so what are the major components of our nervous tissue? One most important thing is neurons or nerve cells, right? So we can consider these neurons or nerve cells as the functional unit of our nervous system, right? So these nerve cells generate and transmit nerve impulses, right? So these nervous tissue or nervous cells, they cannot divide, right? So these neurons, they are found in our brain, spinal cord, in our peripheral nerves. They transmit informations in the form of electrical and chemical signals, right? So as a part of a neuron, right, as you can see in the image, in the slide, right, there is a cell body, right? We are referring it as so, right, cell body, right? So this cell body contains the nucleus and other organs, right? In the cell body, there is the nucleus, right? Then there are dendrites. These are the uh, organelles which receive signals from other neurons, right? Dendrites receive signals from other neurons, right? This receive signals from other neurons, right? Then dendrites receive signals from other neurons, then comes in like this direction, right? Then moves through the axon, right? So the cell body in the neuron, it transmits signals to the other cells. So dendrites receive signals and transmit to the other cells through these axon terminals, right? So through the axon, it transmit uh, the signal to target cells, right? So in these axon terminals, the functions of the axon terminals is the releasing neurotransmitters to target cells, right? So in the axon is covered with myelin sheath, right? There are Schwann cells, and in the middle of these two Schwann cells, there is a node of Ranvier, right? So when a signal is transmitting through the axon, right? A signal is transmitting from uh, through this direction, right? I think it is clear when we consider about the structure of a neuron or parts of a neuron. We can take the cell body, dendrites, axon, axon terminals, myelin sheath, Schwann cells, and nodes of Ranvier are there. Okay. So, as the major component of the nervous tissue, we can take neurons. Then the second one is neuroglia. Neuroglia, or we can refer it as glial cells. So these glial cells support and nourish neurons, right? So support gives a protection, support, and nourishes the neurons, right? So the although neurons cannot divide and multiply, these neuroglia or glial cells can divide and multiply. Okay, when we consider about the quantity of the neurons and glial cells are more numerous than neurons, right? For an example, we can take astrocytes in our brain and Schwann cells in our peripheral nerves, right? So they are the glial cells. So as you can see in this slide, nuclear cell types and functions, right? So I initially mentioned you, our nervous system can be divided into two, central nervous system and peripheral nervous system, right? So in our central nervous system, there are astrocytes, ependymal cells, oligodendrocytes, and microglia, right? Each of these cells have unique functions. When we consider about the peripheral nervous system, there are satellite cells and Schwann cells. So as the parts of the examples of glial cells, astrocytes. So these astrocytes, you can see it is like a star, right? So it support and maintain our blood-brain barrier, right? Maintain blood-brain barrier. It is the function of the astrocytes, right? Then there are oligodendrocytes. These oligodendrocytes form myelin sheath in our central nervous system. Myelin sheath එක හදන්නේ මේ oligodendrocyte, right? Then Schwann cells in our peripheral nervous system, right? Here, Schwann cells uh, myelinate our axons in our peripheral nervous system, right? Then microglia. This microglia act as immune defense in our central nervous system, right? Then ependymal cells. These ependymal cells line our brain's ventricles and circulate cerebrospinal fluid, right? CSF. These are the functions of these glial cells, right? Astrocytes, ependymal cells, oligodendrocytes, microglia, satellite cells, and Schwann cells. Okay, so what can you tell me? What are the characteristics of this so-called nervous tissue? So we can say nervous tissue is highly specialized for electrical communication, right? Other than that, there is a rapid signal transmission, right? It means like within milliseconds, signals are transmission, right? Then there is an irritability. It means they can respond to various stimuli, right? Then there is a conductivity. It means it can transmit signals. Okay, so as a summary, nervous tissue is essential for sensing the environment, processing various kind of information, and coordinating our body responses, right? So if any damage to nervous tissue, it can lead to serious neurological defects, because I already mentioned you, when we consider about the neurons or nerve cells, they cannot divide, right? Although neuroglia or glial cells, they can divide and multiply, right? So I have a question for you. Moving to the next part. So what are the body systems you may know? What are the body systems you may know? So we can take our integumentary system, skeletal system, muscular system, nervous system, endocrine system, cardiovascular system, lymphatic system, respiratory system is there, digestive system is there, urinary or excretory system, reproductive system, right? They are there. So how many are there? There are 11 systems, right? There are 11 systems, right? So you can see in the image. So there are 11 systems, right? So so before moving further, please go through this video.
Levels of organization of body structure and function. How are body parts organized, and how do they work so well together? In order to understand the human body and anatomy, it's good to break things down into levels. In this video, we're going to look at the 7 levels of organization of body structure and function. The first level is the chemical level, and it starts with atoms, which make up every material thing in the universe, including our bodies. Atoms can bond together to form molecules, which are larger chemical groupings, and molecules can combine with other molecules and more atoms to form macromolecules. The next level of organization in the body is the organelle level. Organelles are made up of chemical groupings, and they are tiny organ-like things that are in cells. Organelles have specific functions in cells, and they cannot live outside of cells. And without organelles, cells cannot survive. The cellular level is next. Cells are the smallest unit in the body that shows the basic characteristics of life. It's estimated that the body has around 100 trillion cells, and each cell is made up of a membrane, a nucleus, and a cytoplasm that houses the organelles that are required for the cell to function properly. There are many different types of cells in the body that perform different functions in the body. The next level is the tissue level. Tissue is a group of similar cells that have developed from the same part of the embryo and all perform a certain function. Tissue cells are surrounded by the matrix or non-living intracellular substances. There are 4 major types of tissue in the body: connective tissue, muscle tissue, nervous tissue, and epithelial tissue. Next up is the organ level. Organs are made up of different kinds of tissues that together can perform different functions in the body. For example, the liver, which is an organ located in the abdominal region of the body, stores some vitamins and minerals, stores glycogen, which is a stored form of energy, helps to destroy old red blood cells, and helps to detoxify the blood to get rid of harmful substances. The next level of organization in the body is the system level. Systems are comprised of organs that, by working together, can perform more complex types of functions in the body. There are 11 major systems in the body. Many times systems work together to accomplish different needs of the body. such as the respiratory system takes oxygen in, and the cardiovascular system transports the oxygen to various parts of the body. The organism level is the last level. The overall human organism is made up of all the previous levels we just covered. And that be the levels of organization, of body structure, and function. Levels of organization.
Okay, so I think you have a clear understanding about those organizational levels. So from chemical levels to the organism level, right? So before proceed with organs and organ systems, now I'm going to describe you about the terminology, because in order to understand and identify about the structure and function, especially structure of these organs and organ systems, it is essential to know about this anatomical terminology, right? So what is this anatomical terminology means? Anatomical terminology is a standardized set of terms that we are using to describe the location and position of our structures in our human body. So therefore, this terminology helps our healthcare professionals to communicate accurately and avoid any confusion, right? So first, we are referring to anatomical position. What is this? Anatomical position. This refers to the position of the body in anatomy, right? It means the person stands upright, facing forward, with arms at the sides and palms facing forward and feet slightly apart. This is the anatomical position. This is the standard reference posture we are using in the anatomy in order to describe different locations and relationships of our body parts accurately and consistently, right? So you can see, is this the anatomical position? No, right? So instead of this, right, in the anatomical position, a person should be standing in an upright position. He or she should face forward, then arms should be at the sides and palms should face forward, right? So his or her feet should be flat on the floor, sliding apart, right? Then eyes should looking straight ahead. Okay, so first we identify what is the anatomical position. Now we are going to describe directional terms, right? So first one is superior cranial, right? It means simply we are saying above or toward the head, right? Superior means towards the head or to the upper part of our body, right? So we can say, for an example, our head is superior to the abdomen. Abdomen එකට වඩා ඉහළින් තියෙන head, superior, right? Then inferior, or we are referring as caudal. It means below or toward the feet. It means away from the head or toward the lower part of our body. For an example, we can say our stomach is inferior to the lungs. අපේ ආමාශයට වඩා පෙනහළු තියෙන්නේ ඉහිලින්. එතකොට අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන් stomach is inferior to the lungs. Superior කියන්නේ ඉහළින්, inferior කියන්නේ එහෙනම් පහළින්. Lower parts වලට කිට්ටුයි, right? Then anterior or ventral, right? This means towards the front of our body, towards the front of our body, right? So for an example, we can say our chest is anterior to the spine. ඉදිරි පසින් තියෙනවා. ස්පයින් එකට ඉදිරි පසින් තමයි අපේ chest එක පිහිටලා තියෙන්නේ. Then posterior or dorsal. This refers to the toward the back of our body. Back. right? So the heart is posterior to the sternum, පිටුපසින් towards the back, right? අපේ sternum එකනේ මුලින්ම තියෙන්නේ. ඒකට පිටුපසින් තමයි අපේ heart එක පිහිටලා තියෙන්නේ. Posterior, right? Then medial. Medial means towards the midline, towards the midline of our body. So our nose is medial to the eyes, right? Is it clear? So superior, inferior, anterior, posterior, and medial. Then the lateral position. This refers to the away from the midline of the body. Away from the midline. අපේ බොඩි එක ගත්තට පස්සේ හරියට මැදින් දෙකට බෙදුවට බෙදලා එක ඉරක් ඇන්තට පස්සේ ඒකෙන් පැත්තට වෙන්න. Right? So our arms are lateral to the chest. අපේ chest එක තියෙන්නේ midline එකේනේ. එතකොට අපේ arms ගත්තට පස්සේ ඒවා තියෙන්නේ දෙපැත්තේ. midline එකෙන් දෙපැත්තට වෙන්න. එළියට වෙන්න. Away from the midline. So we can say arms are lateral to the chest, right? Then the proximal. Proximal means closer to the origin of the body part or point of attachment, right? Proximal. Closer to the point of the origin or point of attachment, right? So for an example, if we take our elbow, we can say our elbow is proximal to the wrist. Is it clear? wrist එක ගත්තට පස්සේ wrist එක තියෙන්නේ අපේ ඇඟෙන් ඉවතට වෙන්න. එතකොට අපේ joint එකට point of attachment එක ගත්තට පස්සේ elbow එක proximal to the wrist, right? Then distal. Distal means farther from origin of the body part or point of attachment. So we can say our fingers are distal to the elbow. අපේ elbow එකට වඩා දුරින් තමයි අපි හිටලා තියෙන්නේ අපේ fingers. අපි proximal කියලා ගත්තොත් ඒකේ අනිත් පැත්ත. Proximal කියන්නේ ළඟින්, closer to the origin of the body part or the point of attachment. Distal, it is farther from the origin of the body part. Okay. Then superficial. Superficial means toward or at the body surface, right? It means closer to the body surface, right? So our skin is superficial to the muscles, right? Then deep. Deep means away from the body surface. It means like more internal, right? So further from the surface, right? Away from the body surface. So we can say further from the surface, right? It means located more internally. So our lungs are deep to our rib cage. අපේ rib cage එක ඇතුළේනේ අපේ lungs ටික තියෙන්නේ. එතකොට අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන් lungs are deep to the rib cage කියලා. Okay, is it clear? So here in this anatomical planes and sections, as we are going to discuss about our planes and sections, anatomical planes and sections, right? So far we discussed about the anatomical position. Then we discussed different directional terms that we are used in our anatomical position. So anterior, posterior, superior, inferior, medial, lateral, proximal, distal, superficial, and deep, right? So now we are going to discuss about different anatomical planes and sections. So these anatomical planes, they are imaginary lines that we are using to divide human body into different sections, right? So these anatomical planes, they help us to describe different locations, movements, and views of our internal structures during clinical exams, or maybe in a surgery or for imaging, like such as MRI or CT scans, right? So when there are three main anatomical planes, right? So as you can see in the image, I will show you by drawing a line, right? So first one is sagittal plane, right? So this is the sagittal plane, right? So this sagittal plane, we are referring this as a median or longitudinal plane, right? Median, we also say like median plane or longitudinal plane. Longitudinal plane, right? Sagittal, median or longitudinal plane, right? So this sagittal plane, it divides our body into left and right sides. So for this person, it divides our body into right and left side, right? Okay. So then this is the sagittal plane. So this sagittal plane used to study structures like brain, spine, or lungs from the side, right? So if we divide our body through the sagittal plane, we can uh, divide our body exactly into equal left and right halves, right? Through the mid sagittal plane, right? Is it clear? එතකොට මේ sagittal plane එක හරහා අපි ඉරක් ඇන්දොත් නැත්නම් අපේ බොඩි එක හරියටම බෙදුවොත් අපිට හරියට සමාන කොටස් දෙකකට left and right halves දෙකකට අපිට බෙදන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට අපිට අර මම කලින් කිව්වා වගේ අපේ structures, ඒ කියන්නේ brain එක, spine එක, lungs අපේ පැත්තෙන් පේන විදිහට අපිට study කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා. Okay? Then moving to coronal plane. This is the coronal plane, right? So first I will clear all these things, right? So now the coronal plane. This is the coronal plane, or we can say like frontal plane, frontal or coronal, right? So this coronal plane divides our body into front and back. It means like this is the front and back. It means anterior part and posterior part, right? If we divide our body through this coronal or frontal plane, we can divide our body into anterior part and posterior part, right? So we can see our frontal back view of our body, right? So this is this plane, coronal or frontal plane, right? It is useful for imaging our chest, face, and our abdomen like things. Is it clear? So it is about the frontal plane or coronal plane, right? Then moving to transverse or horizontal plane. We are referring it as horizontal as well, right? Transverse or horizontal plane, right? So this divides our body transverse or horizontal. This divides our body into top. It means superior, right? මේ transverse plane එකෙන් අපි බෙදුවට පස්සේ අපේ body එක අපිට divide කරන්න පුළුවන් top or superior. It means closer to the head. This part top, right? Superior. And bottom, it means inferior, right? Superior and inferior part, right? So this transverse plane divides our body into upper and lower sections. Upper means superior, lower means inferior, right? So commonly we are using this transverse or horizontal plane in our imaging. It means like CT, MRI scans in order to view our internal organs like liver, kidney, and brain. Okay? Is it clear? So these are the major three anatomical planes, right? Sagittal plane, frontal plane, and transverse plane. Is it clear? So if we divide the body through this midline, right? So this is the median sagittal plane, right? So from away from the midline, we are considering as the lateral. Towards the midline, we are referring the position as medial, right? So going from the coronal plane, we can divide from to front side anterior. Away from this coronal plane, we are saying or mentioning as posterior, right? From this transverse plane, right? So this is the transverse plane now. So from towards the head, we are referring as superior. Towards the feet of our body, we are referring as inferior, right? I think it is clear for you now. Body planes and the sections, right? So this is the summary. So the sagittal plane divides our body into right and left parts, right? So a mid-sagittal plane divides it into equal halves, right? So when we consider about the frontal or coronal plane, it divides the body into anterior and posterior parts. When we consider about the transverse plane, it divides our body into superior and inferior parts, right? So now please go through this video.
If you poke and prod at your abdomen, you might be tempted to think that your body is a solid mass of bone, muscle, organs, and tragically for some of us, fat. But it turns out that our bodies actually contain many important spaces or cavities. Some of these cavities, like for example the nasal cavity, open to the outside of the body. However, most of our cavities are internal. Body cavities have several important functions. Firstly, they protect delicate organs, like for example the brain, from bumps and shock when we walk, run and jump. Secondly, cavities allow internal organs to change shape and size. For example, our lungs, stomach and bladder can all expand and contract because they sit inside cavities. And lastly, body cavities provide a warm, nurturing space for foreign creatures to implant into, grow and burst from in the Alien movies.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
The human body consists of two main cavities, the dorsal body cavity and the ventral body cavity. If you're not sure what the terms dorsal and ventral mean, check out my other video on anatomical terminology. Let's start with the dorsal body cavity. It can be divided into two parts, the cranial cavity and the spinal cavity. The cranial cavity is the space formed by the bones of the skull. It contains the brain. The spinal cavity, which is sometimes also called the vertebral canal, is a space formed by the bones of the vertebral column. The spinal cavity contains the spinal cord. Next is the ventral body cavity. It can be subdivided into two parts, the superior thoracic cavity and the inferior abdominopelvic cavity, which are separated by a flat muscular sheet called the diaphragm. The thoracic cavity can be subdivided into the left and right pleural cavities and a central pericardial cavity. The pleural cavities contain the lungs and the pericardial cavity contains the heart. Separating these three cavities is a partition called the mediastinum, The abdominopelvic cavity can be subdivided into a superior abdominal cavity and an inferior pelvic cavity. The abdominal cavity contains the stomach, liver, spleen, kidneys, small intestine, and most of the large intestine. The pelvic cavity contains the bladder and internal reproductive organs. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for more Human Biology Explained videos.
So I think you have a clear idea about the body cavities. As an introduction, before I going along with the topic, I showed you that video to have a clear idea with the images and with the verbalization, right? So now we are going to move to discuss this further, right? So body cavities. So these cavities are the spaces within our body that house and protect our internal organs, right? So as explained in the video, they contain, protect, and support our vital organs, right? So these cavities are lined by membranes and helps to maintain the organ function, their shape, and protection from shocks or any infections as mentioned, right? So I think you can remember there were two main types of body cavities. One is dorsal body cavity and the next one is ventral body cavity, right? So the dorsal body cavity, it protects our central nervous system, right? So there were two body cavities under the dorsal body cavity, right? One is cranial cavity, other one is spinal or vertebral cavity. So in the cranial cavity, it contains our brain enclosed by our skull, right? Then in the spinal cavity, it contains our spinal cord protected by the vertebra, right? Then moving to ventral body cavity. So this ventral body cavity is larger than our dorsal body cavity, right? So this contains visceral organs. It means the internal organs, right? So ventral body cavity, it is in the front side. It can be divided into two: thoracic cavity and abdominopelvic cavity. In the thoracic cavity, it located above the diaphragm. Okay, in the thoracic cavity, it contains pleural cavities, right? So these pleural cavities each houses a lung, right? Left and right. Then there is the pericardial cavity, right? In the pericardial cavity, it includes the heart. Then the mediastinum. Mediastinum is the central compartment, right? We can say it contains the heart, thymus, trachea, esophagus, and major blood vessels, right? So under the thoracic cavity, it includes two pleural cavities, pericardial cavity, and mediastinum, right? Then the abdominopelvic cavity. In the abdominopelvic cavity, it includes it located below the diaphragm. Thoracic cavity located above the diaphragm, right? So the abdominopelvic cavity we can divide into two: abdominal cavity and pelvic cavity. Okay, in the abdominal cavity, it contains digestive organs such as stomach, intestines, liver, and kidneys. But in the pelvic cavity, it contains urinary bladder, reproductive organs, and the rectum, right? So please refer this image, right? So in the lateral view, you can see the dorsal body cavities, cranial cavity, and vertebral cavity, right? In the ventral body cavity, you can see thoracic cavities, abdominal, and pelvic cavities. Okay, so both lateral and anterior views are available in this image for your better understanding, right? So other than these, there are some other smaller cavities, right? One is oral cavity, right? So in our oral cavity, it contains our teeth and tongue. Then the nasal cavity. Our nasal cavity is located within and posterior to our nose, right? Then there are orbital cavities which contain our eyes, right? Other than these three, there are middle ear cavities which contain bones of the middle ear. Okay, I think it is clear for you now, right? So in these cavities, there are membranes, as I already mentioned you that, right? So when we consider about the uh, dorsal cavity, right, there are meninges, right? So these meningeal membranes, they protect our brain and spinal cord, right? Then there are serous membranes which lines our thoracic and abdominopelvic cavities, right? So when we consider about the pleural cavity, pleural membrane surrounds our lungs, right? When we consider about the pericardial cavity, right, pericardium surrounds our heart, right? When we consider about the abdominal cavity, right, the peritoneal membrane, it lines our abdominal cavity and covers all the abdominal organs, right? So there are few membranes in within these cavities, right? Meningeal membrane, so the serous membranes such as pleural membrane, pericardium, and peritoneum. These are the membranes within these cavities. Okay, so why these body cavities matter to us, right? So these body cavities allow organ growth and movement. Other than that, it provides protection from mechanical injuries, right? Then additionally, these body cavities help in organ compartmentalization, and it will reduces the spread of infection, right? This is the summary of these body cavities. Okay, now we are moving to another topic. Homeostasis and feedback mechanisms, right? So what is this homeostasis refers to? Homeostasis is the process by which the body maintains a stable internal environment despite changes in the external environment. It means simply it is helpful for us to maintain a stable internal environment whether changes happens in our outer external environment, right? So this is essential for our life and health, right? So we can define this homeostasis as our body's ability to detect any change and activate mechanisms in order to correct those changes and maintain a stable internal condition such as maybe temperature, maybe pH, or maybe glucose level, right? So this is the definition of homeostasis, right? We are trying to maintain a stable internal environment despite changes in external conditions. Okay, so what are the examples for homeostatic process, right? We are maintaining our body temperature around 36.5 to 37.5 degrees Celsius, right? Despite varying environmental temperatures, right? It means whether our external environmental temperature raises or decreases, we are trying to maintain our body temperature within this range, 36.5 to 37.5. It means around 37 degrees Celsius, right? So what are the homeostatic actions happen here in order to maintain this temperature? Within the normal range, right? We are trying to, our body is sweating when we are exposed to hot environment, right? When we are exposed to cold, we are shivering, right? It is the homeostatic action. Okay, then what about the blood glucose levels? Our normal blood glucose level is 70 to 110 milligrams per deciliter when we are fasting, right? So in order to maintain this normal blood sugar level, what are the homeostatic actions our body is taking? There are hormones. Our insulin lowers our blood glucose level when the blood glucose levels are high, right? If our blood glucose levels are lower than the normal range, our glucagon raising it, right? It is the homeostatic action, right? Then what about the pH balance? Our normal body pH value is around 7.35 to 7.45. It means we are trying to maintain it around 7.4. This is slightly alkaline, right? So what are the homeostatic actions that our body is taking? There are buffers, right? Other than that, through the respiration and kidney functions, we are trying to regulate our pH balance, right? Other than that, we can take the blood pressure as well, right? So our normal blood pressure level is around 120 to 120 by 80 mercury millimeters, right? So in order to maintain this normal blood pressure level, we are trying to adjust our heart rate, our vessel diameters in order to maintain this normal blood pressure level as homeostatic actions, right? Is it clear? So in this homeostatic system, there are key components, right? One is stimulus, right? It means there should be a change in the environment. Then the receptor should be there. It means it detects the change, maybe skin, maybe temperature sensors, right? Then there should be a control center. This control center processes the information. For an example, brain. Then fourth key component is the effector. It means the organ which carries out the response, right? For an example, sweat glands or muscles, right? So in the homeostatic system, there are four key components: the stimulus, receptor, control center, and effector, right? Then through these key components, we are maintaining two types of feedback mechanisms, right? These feedback mechanisms are the processes by which our body maintains the homeostasis process, right? So the two types are the negative feedback mechanism and positive feedback mechanism. So negative feedback mechanism. Negative feedback mechanism, the definition is a process that reverses a change in a controlled condition, bringing it back to a set point, right? It means this is our body's main method of maintaining homeostasis, right? So this works by reversing a change in a controlled condition, right? It means we are trying to return that change to its normal state, right? So here it is a process where our body senses a change and then it activates a mechanism to return back that change to its normal state, right? So we are in the negative feedback mechanism, we are trying to stabilize that particular effect, right? So then through this stabilization, we are promoting a balance or equilibrium, right? So this negative feedback mechanism prevents excessive responses of overcorrections, right? This is a normal process. This is a process which continuously occur in our healthy bodies, right? So for an example, right, our body temperature regulation, right? Let's assume if our body temperature increases above 37 degrees Celsius, it means our body temperature rises, right? So what will happen? Our hypothalamus, it detects this rise of our body temperature and initiate a response to cool out our body, right? So what are the homeostatic actions it can take, right? One is sweating. It will activate our sweat glands, and other thing is vasodilation. It means our blood vessels will dilate in order to cool our body down, right? In the vasodilation, our blood vessels will be widened, right? Then heat can be uh, exchanged to environment, right? So once our temperature returns to the normal, these responses, it means activation of the sweat glands and vasodilation of our blood vessels, will be reversed. Is it clear? Then what will happen if our body temperature drops? Then the hypothalamus will detect that change, and it will triggers uh, shivering mechanism, right? It means අපේ ඇඟ වෙවුලන්න ගන්නවා. hypothalamus signal එකක් දෙනවා අපි shivering activate කරන්න. නැත්නම් vasoconstrict කරන්න කියලා, right? Vasoconstriction means narrowing of our blood vessels, right? As a result of this shivering, right? In order to shiver, because of the shivering through our muscles, it will generate heat. Other than that, through the vasoconstriction, our heat exchange to the environment will be reduced, right? Therefore, through these two processes, through the shivering, it will generate heat. Through the vasoconstriction, it will conserve the heat, right? So as a result, our temperature will return to normal body temperature. Okay, this is how we regulate our body temperature. Okay, so what is the importance here? These negative feedback mechanisms are most common in our body, and they are crucial for maintaining our homeostasis processes. Okay, so similar to this body temperature example, we can take anything. It means blood glucose rise after eating, right? When the blood pressure rises, when thyroid hormones, right? Water balance, all these things we can explain this in negative feedback mechanism, right? Okay, so do you want me to explain this again with another example? So let's take blood glucose regulation, right? So after taking a meal, means like after eating, our blood glucose will rise, right? So what will happen then? Then our pancreas detects this rising of our blood glucose levels, right? As a result, this pancreas, it will releases insulin. So insulin will causes glucose uptake by cells, right? If the glucose in the blood is taken into the cells, it will cause lowering of blood sugar level. So if this blood sugar levels becomes normal, then insulin release by the pancreas will be slowing down, right? So after the change is reversed, this will stop, right? So this is the negative feedback mechanism. Okay, so in this negative feedback mechanism, what will happen? It is reducing or reversing that particular change, right? So what about the positive feedback mechanism then? In the positive feedback mechanism, please do not confuse these two. In the negative feedback mechanism, there will be a reduction or reversing of a change. But in the positive feedback mechanism, it will amplify a change. It means it will increase that change more. or enhance that change, right? So if I discuss, if I explore this further, right? So while negative feedback maintains stability, positive feedback mechanism does the opposite of it, right? It means it amplifies a change or stimulus until a specific goal is achieved. You can amplify karma, tava වැඩි කරනවා, right? So when we consider about the occurrences, positive feedback mechanisms are less common in our body, right? If our body needed it, positive feedback mechanisms are more powerful, right? So we can define this as a process where a response enhances or intensifies the original stimulus, moving the system further away from homeostasis, but only temporarily until a specific outcome is reached, right? So in the negative feedback mechanism, right, we are trying to maintain our normal body status in a normal range, right, within a normal range, right? But in the positive feedback mechanism, if we consider this is the normal range or normal level, right, in the positive feedback mechanism, this is causing enhancing වැඩි කරන නැත්නම් intensify, we can use these terms, right? This enhances, intensifies or amplifies, right? You can use any term, right? එතකොට positive feedback mechanism එකේදී it is a process where a response is enhances or intensifies or amplifies the original stimulus. එතකොට මේක නම් අපේ original stimulus එක, right? එතකොට මේකෙන් කරන්නේ ඒ response එක enhance කරනවා, වැඩි කරනවා, intensify කරනවා, amplify කරනවා. So what will happen? The system will further move away from homeostasis. එතකොට මේක normal range එක නම් එතකොට අපි maintain කරන්න ඕනේ මේකනේ. එතකොට homeostasis level එක තමයි මේක. එතකොට මෙතනදි වෙන්නේ ඒ system එක තවදුරටත් homeostasis level එකකින් ඈතට යනවා. ඇයි අපි enhance කරනවා, intensify කරනවා, නැත්නම් amplify කරනවා. Right? But is this permanent? No, right? This amplification or enhancing or intensification is temporary, right? After this reach or achieve that particular specific outcome, it will return to the normal level, right? So this is a self-reinforcing loop, right? As I already mentioned you, this is short term, it means temporary, right? So after that desired event or goal is completed, this will end, right? So these positive feedback mechanisms often involved in emergencies or special biological events. So what are the examples? We can take the childbirth, right? So during the childbirth, right, our hormone oxytocin is released, right? Because of this oxytocin, it will intensify uterine contractions, right? It means the stronger uterine contractions will be there, right? As a result, right, these contractions because of these strong contractions, baby will be pushing towards the birth canal with a greater pressure, right? As a result, this will turn and stimulates the release of more oxytocin. If there is more pressure, more oxytocin will be released, right? As a result, the contractions will be increasing more and more. So as this will be continuing as a cycle until the baby is born, right? So what is the stimulus here? So the biological process is the childbirth or labor, right? So the stimulus is the pressure causing by the baby which presses the cervix, right? So as a result, oxytocin will be released. So as a result of the oxytocin, there will be more stronger contractions. Then because of these more stronger contractions, there will be more pressure. If the pressure is more and more oxytocin will be released, right? So this cycle will be continued until the baby is born. Okay, other than that, we can take the blood clotting example, right? So when a blood vessel is injured, right, platelets will be activated. It means platelets start to adhere to the damaged site and release chemicals which attract more platelets, right? Then it will form a clot, right? So this positive feedback loop helps to stop bleeding quick. Okay, so other than that, we can take the lactation, ovulation of a female, right? Nerve signal transmission as examples for these positive feedback mechanisms. Okay, so as a summary, the positive feedback mechanisms are less common, but they are also essential in situations where a rapid response is necessary. Okay, so, but keep this in mind, right? These positive feedback mechanisms, they are not beneficial in most of the occasions, right? It means it can be harmful if uncontrolled, right? For an example, so we can take high fever, right? High fever can trigger positive feedback loop, but that may lead to tissue damage or death, right? So I think it is clear for you, right? So as a summary of this positive and negative feedback mechanism, the purpose of the negative feedback mechanism is stabilize, right? But the purpose of the positive feedback mechanism is intensify, amplify, or enhance, right? When we consider about the outcome of the negative feedback mechanism, outcome will be returning of that change to a normal level. But in the positive feedback mechanism, it will reach a specific event, right? Going beyond the normal range, reach a specific event, right? When we consider about the frequency of negative feedback mechanism, it is more common than positive feedback mechanisms, right? For an example, negative feedback mechanisms, thermoregulation, blood sugar levels, pH, all these things can be taken, right? So for examples of positive feedback mechanisms, we can take labor, lactation, blood clotting, like examples. Okay. So finally, we are going to talk about the roles of these feedback mechanisms in homeostasis. One thing is maintaining balance, right? So we already discussed these feedback mechanisms continuously monitor and adjust our body's internal environment while ensuring that the conditions remains within a range that supports life. Body temperature, blood pressure, blood glucose levels, blood pH levels, like things, right? Then it will maintain a dynamic equilibrium, right? It means in the homeostasis, it is not saying that they are maintaining a condition at a static level or unchanging, right? But rather they fluctuate within a range. එතකොට එකම නිශ්චිත අගයක පවත්වාගෙන යනවා කියලා එකක් කියන්නේ නැහැ මෙතන. ඒ වුණාට අපි කියන්නේ මොකක් හරි range එක පරාසයක fluctuate වෙනවා. So the feedback mechanisms ensure that these fluctuations are minimized and that stability is maintained, right? That's what we are saying as it will be helpful for our body to maintain a dynamic equilibrium, not a static equilibrium, dynamic equilibrium. Static equilibrium එකක් කියනවනම් අපි කියන්නේ වෙනස් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. නිශ්චිත අගයකම තියාගෙන යනවා. මෙතන dynamic equilibrium එකේදී අපි කියන්නේ අපි නිශ්චිත පරාසයක fluctuate වෙනවා. ඉහළ යන්නත් පුළුවන්, පහළ යන්නත් පුළුවන් මේ පරාසය ඇතුළත. So now you have a assignment, right? You have to create a diagram illustrating the levels of structural organizations in the human body and write a short explanation of each level, right? So I have discussed these things within these 2 lectures, right? So finally, you have to write a small essay to explain importance of homeostasis for optimum body function. Just write about 500 to 1000 words, right? So I think it is clear now. So today we had a brief introduction about the basic level that we discussed in the first lecture. It means how our body organized from basic chemical levels to organizational level, right? Then we discussed about different cell types, tissue types, right? Then we discussed about each of these tissue types, right? Muscle tissue, nervous tissue, epithelial tissue, and connective tissue in detail, right? Then we discussed about the homeostasis process. What is the definition? What are the 2 mechanisms of positive feedback mechanism and negative feedback mechanism? Finally, we compare these 2 and we clarify and explore these 2 mechanisms with examples, right? So it is that's all for today. If you have any questions or clarifications, please contact me. If you have any questions, please contact me, or you can refer these lecture materials and ask any questions within the next week. Okay, so we can wind up the session for today. Thank you for your participation. Have a nice day to you all. Thank you very much.